So here's the thing. I have completely remodeled and done home additions on 3 houses in the last 14 years, and these are the things that you'll need to know. I am Sarah. Welcome to Grace in My Space. If you're new to my channel, I focus heavily on home remodeling, DIY, lifestyle. I throw in some recipes, but not a lot. I really like to cook, but I more prefer to eat. But what I really love is creating a home, whether I'm doing it on a very strict like $0 budget, or I'm actually doing a full gut home remodel or home addition. There is a place for everything from low budget DIY all the way to hired out full gut remodels. And I am here to tell you what you need to know if you want to take your home and transform it, no matter what your budget is, if you are ready to do it DIY style, or if you want to hire it out. 14 years of experience, 14 years of living in the remodel, quite literally. We've always lived in the house as we're remodeling it. And I hope that these tips and this experience that I'm going to share is so helpful to you.
The first thing that I really want you to consider as you strive to create a beautiful home in a haven, in a refuge, is what is your mindset towards your home? Is it just the place that you lay your head at night, or is it actually a place that you want to create a haven out of? Your mindset towards design is really imperative to creating a haven and a place that you actually love being in and provides rest and a retreat to you. And you can't create a haven without knowing yourself and knowing the people that occupy your home with you. So even though this video is about design and remodeling and DIY, what I really need you to start with is what makes you tense? What makes you relax? What are your time limitations? What do you need from your home to serve you well, to benefit you in your goals? How is your home going to work for you rather than take from you? And all of these mindset questions really come together to give you the desired atmosphere that you want to create in your space. Long ago, I created what I would call my own personal mission statement for my home. And it went like this: to create a safe, welcoming, cozy, and organized environment for my family to live, thrive, and learn, while designating both family and individual spaces for each person to relax and recharge in, to be a steward of the haven God provides for us, while being a reflection of God's goodness to all who enter in person or via Grace in My Space, and to enjoy my haven as a reflection of my own creativity and my family's personality. Now, in that mission statement, I didn't talk about design at all. I talked about my own personal values. And those are the things that I want you to consider before you dive into the home design portion of remodeling your home. Because the goal is not to design a space that will remain stagnant for the rest of your life. The goal is to design a haven that's reminiscent of your life and meets your needs along the way. So with that, let's get started.
Now, your first step is to get very specific on defining your problem areas and what you actually need to solve. A lot of people live in a home for a while and then they start discovering the issues that the home has. Maybe it's lack of functionality, maybe it's lack of storage, maybe it's lack of character, maybe it's just not aesthetically your style, but you need to very specifically pinpoint the problems that you're solving, because if you go into a home remodel or a DIY project or anything where you're changing your home in any way, shape, or form, and you don't know why you're changing it, then you're probably not going to solve that problem. And when you get done with the project, you're going to say, wow, I changed it, but it didn't give me more storage. It just made it look better. Or maybe it did add functionality, but you didn't define your own personal style before starting it. And at the end of the project, you feel like it still just doesn't really fit your home or your own personal preferences. So this is the time to get out a sheet of paper, bring in all of your family who need to have input on this project, and write down very specifically, my microwave doesn't fit anywhere in my kitchen. My dining table needs to be able to extend to fit 10 people. My living room is always a cluttered, chaotic mess because it's the main room of the house and I have no storage in it. These are the kinds of things that you really need to drill down into before you start any project.
Once you've written down those very specific, true problems, it's at this point of the process that you can narrow it down to fix the problem in one of 4 categories. First, rearrange. Do you simply need to move things around? Do you need to change your furniture layouts? Do you need to put an organization system in place or just totally change the function of a room? You can rearrange. Number 2, do you need to refresh? Maybe that's adding new decor, buying new furniture, or just changing the paint color on the walls. Or 3, remodel. This is updating paint colors, replacing outdated fixtures or finishes, buying bigger ticket items like new appliances, or updating your windows or your doors. Things that are replacing what's there to fix your problem. And then number 4, renovate. This is full-on renovation, restoring flooring, take down walls, replacing cabinets, moving plumbing and electrical, adding room additions, or otherwise changing the structure of your home. A lot of the problems that you've probably written down could be solved with 1 or 2, rearranging or refreshing, and those can be done on a budget, even DIY style if you don't want to hire it out. Many of them can also be fixed with a remodel, where you're updating what is existing, and that can also be done DIY style. It is more rare to actually need to renovate a home. Now, maybe that fits your personal lifestyle better because you don't have time to do it yourself, and there is absolutely no shame on that whatsoever. That is what we've done on this last home, which is the first time that we actually did a renovation where we hired it out. Most of the time prior in our 14 years of remodeling homes, we've done it ourselves. But there comes a time and a place where your time is more valuable than the money you'll save by hiring it out. So my absolute number 1 tip for designing a haven is that you have to be realistic. Unrealistic expectations are a surefire way to become discouraged and frustrated when you're going through this process. Be realistic about your budget, about your renovation limitations, about the time frames you have, and about your own ability. While everyone would love to be able to do something themselves to save a buck, it is not always the best choice. So now that you have designated what are your problems, you have determined which of those 4 items do you need to do to tackle those problems, it's time to set a design vision and goals.
Now, one question that I get all the time is how do I come up with designs? Because it's very difficult if you don't have either the education or just the natural visual ability to see a design in your mind to go from nothing to something. This coffee nook that I just completed recently is a great example of it was literally just a hole in the wall. Previously, it was a coat closet. And how did I go from something that had a purpose but didn't quite fit our family's needs to creating something with a completely different purpose that had a lot of design elements in it? And the answer to that is twofold. Number 1, inspiration. Even though I've been designing for a long time, I am not a professional interior designer. I did not go to school for it. I have no credentials in it. I've just done it for a long time, and so my eye is drawn to things that I can see are good design. And when you can see that something is good design, it can inspire you in so many ways. And so I would recommend highly going on Pinterest and creating a board for each individual project that you want to tackle. If you're designing a kitchen, create a kitchen board, and as you're searching through Pinterest or even through social media or websites or magazines or even ads, if you see an ad come on TV and you love the way that their living room looked, snap a picture of it, load it to your Pinterest board, and specifically write what it is that you like about that photo or about that setting. As an example, perhaps in this entire look, you don't really love the brackets, or maybe you don't really love the antiques, but you really love the color of the cabinet. Then still pin it to your Pinterest board, but write down, I like that cabinet color, and it helps you narrow down the things that your eye's drawn to that fits your personality and your needs. And once you collected all these very specific details, it's a lot easier to take what you have seen in other people's designs and make it your own. But the biggest thing that you have to know as you're doing that process is that it's going to take time to train your eye to look for things that you like. This isn't something that's just going to come naturally for everyone. It is a learned skill. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that people overlook. They get frustrated because they can't see something that somebody else can see, but they haven't spent any time on it. So if you haven't spent any time learning and honing in on this specific skill of interior design, then it is going to be challenging for you. If that's the case and you feel like you really just need to learn more, that's my second suggestion. Go to Skillshare.
I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I have been enjoying so many of their classes that have helped me on a professional level. When I first started this career, I didn't know anything about filming or social media best practices or marketing, and I've learned so much through classes like this on Skillshare. But you can learn so much about interior design as well. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and it has thousands of classes, and they're all led by industry experts. And like I said, this is across so many different industries: film, illustration, design, productivity, freelance. It can help you so much with skills in your career, hobbies, passions, or just your side hustles. In this case, take advantage of what they offer for their members in classes in interior design. Learning these skills will be invaluable as you do any kind of DIY or home remodeling. And I want to help you with that. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive 1 month free trial of Skillshare, so you can get started today.
So if you're ready to really take designing your home seriously, check out Skillshare. Make sure and check it out in the link in my description.
Now, once you have put together your mood boards and you've designed the spaces that you want to design, or you've gotten help and you've learned those design skills that you might have been lacking, it's time to actually take those and make goals out of them. You can create short-term goals, you can create long-term goals. What can you do in a weekend? What can you do in a month? What can you do in a year? Be very specific. Being specific is going to save you a lot of frustration in the process because you have set something that's realistic and can actually be accomplished without burning yourself out. So let me give you a very quick 10-step process to design. Obviously, we've already talked about quite a few of these. Make your own personal mission statement. What do you want your home to be? Define the problems or define your needs if it's easier for you to kind of think about it in I need this versus this is the problem. Evaluate those problems. You need to set your budget. You need to determine your limitations, and you need to establish a realistic time frame. Then you need to set realistic expectations for yourself. Can you do this on your own? Do you have the ability? Do you have the budget to hire it out? What is realistic for your family? Then you've built out your whole design vision and you define those design elements that inspire you within the realistic realm of what you can actually accomplish. You're going to create those short and long-term goals, and then you're going to edit your home. And you'll notice that there are at least 9 steps to walk through prior to actually changing anything. The forethought and the planning stages of design are perhaps the most important, because without truly considering those steps of the design process, it's going to be very difficult to implement it. Now, one of the big questions I get is people tell me, I've set my goals, but I feel overwhelmed by my existing decor and I don't have the budget to just replace it all. So how do I incorporate what I have into my design plans? And that is where you edit your home. Now, editing your home is a very important step in this process. Before you start anything, go through the room that you're going to be updating. Take out anything that does not serve your family, anything you don't use anymore, anything that's not your style anymore, anything that is in the way and become cumbersome. Get it out of the space completely, because starting with only the items that you either love or are useful to you is a very helpful way to start a project without all that extra clutter. One of the biggest mistakes you can make in creating your haven is to try and force your existing decor into your new design if you don't love it. So realistically, yeah, you might need to live with your outdated couch until it fits your plans and budget to purchase a new one. However, for smaller decor items or pieces that might be just unnecessary, like those 5 end tables you've stored for 10 years but never used, get rid of them. This is how you edit. Walk through your home with your mission statement, your design vision, and your goals in mind. Keep those in mind because they're very important to make this functional and to make it successful. Consider your existing decor and furniture and whether or not it'll work with your plans. And if you don't love it, you can't repurpose it, or it doesn't serve a purpose, then edit it. You can sell it and use those funds to increase your budget for replacements, or you can donate it. Outdated or out of your style decor and design will not serve a purpose in creating your haven. And you got to remember, the design is fluid and your tastes will evolve over time, so change is okay. Now, one big overarching design element that you're going to want to nail down before you do anything is a whole home color palette. There are 2 different ways that I like to go about creating a color palette. Number 1, I go directly to my wardrobe because the color of clothes that you wear are probably the colors that you love. My closet is filled with taupes, whites, greens, and a little bit of blue. And that is exactly what my whole home color palette is. Whether intentional or not, we love the colors that we love. So why not take a cue from your wardrobe and see if it'll fit within a home? And then that second option that you can do is remember those Pinterest vision boards. Head to those. See what colors are repeated multiple times within your photos throughout all of your different boards, and then write down the big overarching color that you love the most, and then narrow down 3 to 5 accent colors that you fit that will coordinate well with those main colors throughout the space. Using those same 4 to 5 colors throughout your entire home will make it a really cohesive space. Another question I get a lot is, how do I get the look from design icons that I absolutely love, but then it doesn't look the same in my home? Now, this happens to the best of us. We see an image, we love the image, we love everything about the image, we try to place that image within our home, and it doesn't work. Most of the time, it's because we didn't walk through the entire design process. A lot of times, what works in someone else's home just doesn't fit our home specifically. So rather than trying to copy other people's examples, define what you loved in those spaces. Maybe you tried to recreate the boho look with dozens of plants, but the real design element that you loved was the use of pops of color, and you didn't take the time to define what of those photos it was that really drew you in. Or maybe you oversimplified your decor to achieve a minimalistic design style when you really just loved the look of the clean lines of Scandinavian furniture. Be specific.
Now let's talk about budget. Creating, setting, and keeping to a budget that is agreeable to all parties in the family, as well as your contractors, is going to be the most difficult part of any home remodel process, and the biggest impact that it's going to have on it is timeline.
Now, a big part of your budget is going to be deciding what you can do yourself and what you can hire out. I am a huge proponent of DIY. I love DIY. I think that so many people don't even try or attempt to do something because they're afraid of failure, or they're afraid that they'll mess it up and then have to pay more for a professional to come in and fix it. But more often than not, you can actually do it. If there's anything that I've proven over the last decade of sharing my home remodeling on the internet, it is that it can be done even if you have no previous experience, no skill set for the things that you're attempting, and no knowledge. All you have to do is learn it. Every professional that's out there started knowing nothing, and they have learned over time. They have been taught, but they've also taught themselves. And that is a big part of DIY, is just creating confidence in yourself that you can learn the skills needed to tackle the project. With that said, if you've never done anything before, don't start by building a living room addition. Baby steps. DIY requires a learning curve, and you do have to work up to the big stuff. But if you are just intimidated to change the paint color in a room, watch some YouTube videos, learn the best techniques for trimming out paint, for rolling paint, for getting the right paint color. Take the time, look at Skillshare, look at Pinterest, look at YouTube, and learn how to do the things that you are fearful of messing up, and you'll have a much better success rate. And then as you grow your own DIY skills, as you get experience, you can take bigger steps and tackle bigger projects. But there are also times where hiring is the best option, and you just have to make sure that your budget can accommodate it. Now let's talk about hiring out, because the biggest question that I get besides how do I know how to design things is how do I find a good contractor? As with anything, personal recommendations, I believe, are still the biggest deciding factor on finding and hiring a contractor. If you have nobody that you can personally talk to, then go to Google reviews, go to Yelp, go to Angie's List. Find online reviews to give you a starting point. Once you've found someone that you think might fit your project, give them a call, have a conversation, ask for references from their previous customers. Call every single reference and have personal conversations on the phone with these people. If you have the ability, drive by a house that they have worked on. See what kind of quality workmanship they have. Do more research than you think is possibly necessary, because working with a good contractor will make or break your home remodel or your addition experience. You want to make sure that who you're hiring is highly qualified with experience, licensed, and insured. They have quality workmanship, excellent communication. That one is top of the mark. You have to have somebody who will communicate with you. They're organized and professional, reliable and trustworthy, and able to work within your timeline and your budget. As a part of that interview process, pay attention to how quickly they get back to you, because returning phone calls and answering questions, providing quotes are huge parts of working with a contractor. And chances are, if they take weeks to respond to you during that interview process, it's going to be the same way once you've hired them. Make sure you're also asking what subs they work with: electricians, plumbers, HVAC, flooring installers, drywall hangers, tilers. These are often contracted out, so you want to make sure that those people that they use all the time also have good reviews. These are the questions to ask them. Ask them how they like to communicate. Are they a phone call only person? Do they do emails? Do they text? How do they document what's been discussed and what the plan is? What kind of project management system do they use? Do they just keep all the information in their head? Do they have a way of organizing exactly what you've talked about and what the plan is for your project? Do they hire architects? Do they have interior designers on staff? How do they handle unexpected problems or delays? What's going to be their plan of attack for your specific project? How do they work on jobs? Do they start one job and work till it's completed, or are they bouncing around from 5 to 6 job sites at a time? This one is particularly important because a lot of the larger companies are working on many different job sites at the same time, and you want to make sure that your job's not going to get delayed because they're pulling off of yours and working on someone else's. How do they handle permitting? You want to make sure that you are obtaining everything you need to stay legal within your township or city. Now let's talk specifically about a home addition, because there are a lot of questions that you're going to need answered before you really dive in. So you need to assess your structural support. What's needed for the existing house to attach to the new addition? Are you changing the roof line? Do you need to reshingle your entire roof? That's a big expense. Are you adding new angles that's going to cause your rainwater to flow negatively and potentially cause leaking problems in the future? How are you designing your sight lines from one room to the next so that the addition feels intentional and not just like an afterthought? Are you planning out the room shape and the layout for the best furniture placement for this new room so that you don't get it done and then think about furniture and regret the shape of the room that you decided on? Are you going to add a crawl space, a partial or a full basement under the addition, and what's the cost difference? A lot of times it's not very expensive to dig deeper and do a full basement as it would be just to do a crawl space. Are your mechanicals able to handle the extra load of an addition? Furnace, water heater, AC, well capacity, all of these things have limits. So you need to make sure that adding on square footage isn't going to impact those mechanicals. How are you going to carry or transition your flooring from your existing home into the addition? Will you change it? Will you be able to keep the same flooring and still flow it in? Make sure that you're thinking through that as a big part of the design process. How are you going to mix old and new exterior materials? Do you need to reside the entire house? Will the addition be a stone accent or brick while the rest is siding? There's a lot of really fun design that you can do with your exterior as you add on to your home. Do you have the ability to match your new to existing windows? This one's really big because from the outside, it will make a big impact if your windows are all different from the exterior. You want to be able to match them as well as possible. And how are you going to design to keep natural light at a maximum? Is the addition going to block existing windows or change how the light enters the original home? Make sure you're considering lighting. And I would also highly incorporate outdoor living into your design planning when it makes sense to do so. We took the opportunity as we added on our living room addition to add on also a large deck that wrapped around to the back of the existing house. And that was all a part of the original design plan because outdoor living is just as important as indoor. Now, as you are designing your either remodel or your DIY project or your addition, future planning is important. Do you need to add additional spigots for landscaping because you've made your home bigger and you need to be able to water on the other side of the house where there never was need for it before? Do you need to add extra exterior outlets or lighting? Do you need to plan ahead for wiring for surround sounds or TVs or motorized blinds? Really think through how you're going to live in the space and what doesn't exist that you need to plan for in the future. Also, make sure to assess your long-term needs and family growth. As you're picking apart the problems and the needs that you need to address, think long-term as well. Maybe you have a young family right now and you're thinking young family needs. This is how I live right now. This is what we need right now. But what about when your kids are teenagers? Do you really want to do all of this work and then in 10 years it doesn't fit the needs of your future home? Make sure that you're solving your problem as your kids grow in size, as your activities change, as your space requirements change, and think through what might be different in 5 to 10 years that you should tackle now. Now, whether you're using a construction loan, home equity, you're paying out of pocket, budget is paramount. All of our material and labor costs are rising, and it can get out of control very quickly if you don't set good parameters. If you're doing a home addition, the average cost is between $20,000 to $130,000 in 2024, depending on your geographic location, the materials, and the type of room that you're adding on. Things like a kitchen is going to be a lot more expensive than just a bedroom. So the best option for you to determine your budget is to start getting those bids. I would get at least 3 bids from 3 different reputable contractors, or work up your numbers if you're doing it DIY style. And if you are curious about what to expect, but you're not really ready to actually contact people, there are lots of online resources that can estimate a budget for a specific project. But as you plan your budget, consider the ROI. Return on investment is huge if you're going to dive deep into home remodeling. While I'm a huge proponent of making our homes the way we want our homes to be, regardless of others' opinions or resale value, I do want to be careful to recommend that you don't go above and beyond the ROI of your remodel. Just as an example, maybe you have a small primary bedroom and you want to make this gigantic primary suite. It's going to cost you $100,000. In 1 year, unexpectedly, you have a job change, you have to move. Are you going to be able to list your house for $100,000 more than what you paid for it just because you've added on a master suite? That one's risky. $100,000 for a primary suite is not unrealistic in 2025. So these are the kinds of things that you really need to think through before you invest those kinds of funds into an addition or a remodel.
Let's talk about scaling back on plans. When we bought this house, this area right here was a dream to completely open, have there be a cased opening that spanned both of these rooms, and making this a gigantic living room on the other side of this opening. And when we started to dig into it, not only was it extremely expensive, which we knew that it would be an expensive project, but it really ate into the budget because of all of the structural elements that we would have had to dive into with doing all new beam supports. It would have impacted the roof line. It would have impacted the upstairs because this is a 2-story home. And also it would have impacted how we could do decking on the outside of the house. Where that had to go, we would have had to move ground, move soil, which is more expensive than you might think to create a foundation. And there were so many different elements that went into it. And when all was said and done, we said, you know what, we need to scale back and we need to have a plan B, and we need to come up with a solution that still gets us that living space that we so desperately needed in this smaller home, but does it within our budget, within our timeline, and within our contractor's capabilities. So we took what would have been a 600 square foot room addition that would have served as a living room, great room, seating area, and we made it a 300 square foot addition. Still big, still serves a purpose, but much, much more friendly on the budget and the scale of the project. So having that flexible mindset in remodeling and home additions is so very important, because if you're only stuck on this one idea and it has to be this way, then you're probably going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to create character in your home, to make it look unique and special, and you're also going to blow your budget. The question that I get the most often is, I don't even know where to start. And I hope that this video answered that question for you and gives you a great foundation for taking your project to the next level. Now, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I will either get back to you directly or I'll do a new video answering some of the common questions that I get from today. If you want to see our most recent home remodel, I cataloged the entire 1.5-year process for you in a playlist, and I'll link it in the description. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next week.